Okay, we are live. Friday night, February 7th, 2025. Lots of development. Lots of things have happened in all areas, and we're getting ready for the Super Bowl. And I said I was going to have some predictive programming for you, or some connections, some weird connections that aren't so weird when you understand what they're doing, relating to it. And we'll get into that. The other day I played a clip from Brothers Grimsby. And Brothers Grimsby is some terrible movie that I've never seen. But there's a part in the movie where during a halftime show at a football game, a gun goes off and it shoots President Trump. I mean, they've been fantasizing about this for a long time. You might also just refer to most Hollywood as just stochastic violence. I mean, they make it seem like it's inevitable, but it's all by design. Something else happened. Oh, yay. Yadoff. Yadoff is back. And, we were talking about Henderson Solomon, the black white supremacist school shooter who was motivated to do so by Candace Owens and Ye. Well, I called out the Ye connection before I even read his manifesto, before it was even out, just based on his t-shirt that said Burzum. I knew where it was going. And the inversion, like the black white supremacist, it sounds crazy, but it's meant to be. It's this helter-skelter narrative, and they've been running with it for some time. And Ye's been behind this since that song Black Skinhead. And then he shows up on Alex Jones with the head of the America First, Nick Fuentes, wearing a black hood. Now, we've talked about the meaning of this and all the characters involved, Candace Owens and all these characters. But it's interesting that he's back on X right now, and he declares himself Yadoff. He says, I'm Yadoff Hitler, and your B wants to F. So it's just Ye being Ye. And I'm wondering, what's the deal with this anyway, though? Like, why has he gone from walking his gimp around? And when I say gimp, if you have your partner, your wife, your husband on a leash, and then they don't speak, and they're just like property, like you're walking them around on a leash, that's a gimp by all definition. But that's not getting the attention that I think they wanted. And so now he's resorting to this, I guess. At least he's not faking swattings like most of the right-wingers do, or at least he's not making up rape threats like Tim Pool, who claimed that someone threatened to do that to him and behead him. Like, nobody wants to rape Tim Pool, not even Diddy. And by the way, Ye has come out in favor of Diddy. He is now advocating for the release of P. Diddy for some reason. And they've worked together. And I think they've both been named in a number of pretty bad allegations. Whether you believe any of this stuff or not, it's up to you. I personally don't. I think this is some, I would say, grotesque reality TV show. And it's part of the process of steering the consensus, controlling our worldview. And I don't think it's far-fetched. Last night I went to a circus, this paranormal circus thing that came through town. And it just occurred to me that the power elite recruit the most talented people at creating illusions and telling stories. And I was just thinking that we really do live in a circus. It's huge, but it's certainly, by all definitions, like a madhouse in many ways. It's like, what I mean is a closed system of information. It's like Wonderland, where the Mad Hatter's in control. They make up the rules. And I'm not exaggerating. This is not hyperbole. If you're even slightly cognizant of fake news and how it all gets a pass and how it drives the mainstream narratives and how fake news is never debunked, it's all settled journalism. Well, what do you think that does long term? What do you think it has done? We've been born into what I call a news bent reality. Nick the Rats here says, take Ye's word as gospel. Yeah, Ye is I think he's some kind of a pawn. I think this is controlled opposition. I don't think he's speaking any kind of truth to any kind of power. If anything, it's just pandering. And I don't really buy any of it, to be honest. He never talks about anything fake because he has no idea. At best, he's a Truman in a Truman Show, and he's clueless. At worst, he's well apprised of his role, and he's just a cynical manipulator. Take your pick. but that's the universe we're in. So Kendrick Lamar has this new song where he calls out one of these rappers. He calls out Drake as being a predator, child predator. And the song is called Not Like Us. And from what I understand, he's going to perform Not Like Us at the Super Bowl on Sunday. So I watched the video just to see, what's in it. And interestingly enough, there's a scene in it where at the end where the performer, the rapper, goes up to a cage with an owl in it, pays some kind of homage to it, and walks away. Now, I don't know the significance of the owl specifically, but many people who analyze Super Bowl symbolism refer to it as this superb owl, possibly a reference to the Bohemian Grove, where they worship Moloch in the form of an owl, kind of weirdly. I mean, that's never quite made sense to me. Moloch, owl, bull, these aren't that interchangeable. So here you have an image, Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us, and the end scene, there's the owl here. I put a link. Now, he said he's going to perform it, but there are some rumors that he won't because of potential defamation. I don't think that matters. But regardless, I don't know what the owl thing is, but what do you think? And a literalist says, Jaren's people said solar systems, Milky Way, and galaxies are not flat. No, the solar system's flat. It's called the ecliptic plane. It's called conservation of angular momentum. I don't even believe in solar systems, and I know it's flat. Unless you count Pluto against it, but that's because it's the underworld, 17 degrees below. Galaxies are flat. The universe is flat. You think the universe is a ball? And what's it doing? Orbiting another universe? No, the universe is... It just tends towards flatness. It's not curving back on itself at any point. What's at the edge of the universe, by the way, all you universers, you believers in the universe as described by science, what's at the edge? We don't have a complete model. It's fallacious to act as though we do. And you have your best explanations, we call these theories, but we don't have all the answers. And my main divergence from the dominant scientism paradigm, what everyone is more or less believing by default, my main issue with it happens to be that it's not inclusive of all of the information that we know very well is being concealed from us. Whatever's behind fake space might do a lot towards explaining what this place is, but for some reason, we're given false explanations. And just because you can't debunk the false explanation doesn't mean it has to be your default. Flat versus round has always been an either-or fallacy, kind of a false dilemma, and a misdirection from media fakery. That's why I just mentioned with Ye, he's not some kind of rogue going against the system any more than Trump. People fall for this stuff. Nope. They are doing nothing to change the status quo because the power balance is firmly established by this chasm between the programmed believers and the programming class. And the programming class is mostly programmed itself. But nobody's upsetting the big apple cart. All right, let's see who's here today. I notice every Super Bowl there's doomsday prophecies by the gematria people. The gematria crowd who use their gematria calculators. And I was thinking about this gematria thing, by the way, because someone like Zach Hubbard, for example, builds his channel around it, and he consistently finds evidence for the Jesuits on everything. And I think the reason why is pretty clear. It's the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. If you have a broad enough field of information to draw from, you can really cherry pick anything. And somehow every Super Bowl, the gematria calculator people are there to provide evidence that it's about to be destroyed. Every time there's a Super Bowl, it's the end of the world. And I think that's, at this point, we should, like last time I said, after the last Super Bowl, I blocked all the gematria people, all the sports bettors people. But I was just saying, I remember this conversation where Zach Hubbard had said that he never got into the flat earth. He never sold out for the flat earth money. And I thought that was kind of funny because it's the least monetizable zone in Trutherville. And there's no money in it in that sense. But I was thinking, if I had this way to predict the outcome of sports, I would be like Biff Tannen rich. because that's what he did. He was betting on sports because he had some foreknowledge. And so I'm just saying, I have no faith in any of these doomsday prophecies that pertain to Super Bowl, whatever it is this time, 59. Okay, and one of the issues with a gematria calculator is that they have multiples. You should only have one calculator. One standardized gematria calculator that everybody in Trutherville adheres to. There has to be some standards. All right, joined by Thirst for Truth, Truman B1000, Truman B3000. Oh, by the way, Insider is out. Go to Insider, that's INCITER, like starting a fire or inciting a riot. Go to insider.shop. There's a few copies left. I had to reserve quite a few for people who had pre-ordered. And this is issue 1. If you don't get it, no big deal. I'm going to order another batch when issue 2 gets printed next week. And then I'm going to back order and put them in my inventory. But the first one's out. Print quality is great. I had a minor issue with the margin size, but it'll be fixed before the next batch. All right, let's see. Clockwork, thank you for joining. Roxy W, KKIN, Ears Up, Ted Stryker, Esteban, Greg R, Rocky USA, Mango Penguins, Diana South, Frank Murr, and a literalist. That's right. I haven't been following much of any of these flat earth people. I mean, they're all, at this point, so married and attached to their orthodoxies that they're in a parallel universe. It's become that way. It's become a belief system. And I do agree with some of what Jeranism has said about the flat earth becoming a religion. But we said the exact same thing in 2017. It's nice for them to catch up. Roxy W says, I read that Minerva is an owl. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that is correct. And I think the intro level at some of these different mystery schools is the symbol of Minerva. The owl is associated with it. Yeah, Alan Smith, I watched Dr. Shiva's discussion with Flat Earth Dave, and I recommend it to anybody. Because what he really, and I agree with him 100%, he's insisting on a scientific methodology here. And that there should be an experiment that everyone agrees upon. He has experts, but he's right about methodology over Gish Gallop, which is what Flat Earth Dave is scientifically illiterate. And that's not acceptable if you've been in this arena for 7 or 8 years. And one of the main issues with the whole Flat Earth crowd is they're anti-science. Candace Owens, for example, I was just thinking about this. I was listening to her talk. She's anti-science. They associate science with Satan. And that's not going to get you anywhere. But having listened to Dr. Shiva explaining how he would approach the issue, I realized that he is a skeptic. And he's approaching it appropriately. He knows how to parse the information and how to suspend judgment, what claims to hold off on. He's not quick to agree on anything. And he was quick to put the brakes on when it was just trying to overwhelm him with a lot of things he couldn't test. So the rhetoric, so there's logic and there's rhetoric. And, logic has these formal rules. Rhetoric is just, you can kind of be convincing. And Flat Earth Dave, for some reason, is convincing to some people. But anyway, my point here is that I have a letter I've written. I'm still adding to it, but I'm going to send something to Dr. Shiva, and I want to get into a conversation with him about applying the same methodology to the consumption of news media. And I want to see how far he can go. Because if he's willing to even slightly entertain the idea that NASA is lying and that all the space agencies are colluding and all the governments are colluding in massive lies, I think I can get into a fruitful discussion with him about media fakery generally and how systemic fakery is. Ted Stryker ordered 2 copies. All right, great. Well, you know what? I just picked up the envelopes. I am printing out labels in the morning. Those are going out immediately. I plan to have everything, as far as the paper goes, shipped out every day. And one other thing. eBay has this domestic hub where I can send the papers and they can go from there internationally, and I only pay domestic rates. So I will make it available internationally. You just have to buy it through my eBay store. So if you go to timosman.art, I will always have copies of the Insider there for international buyers. Esteban says, to hell with that tiny hat. He knows about the fakery. The people that pay him are the ones doing it. Diana South says, Flat Earth Dave is entertaining. I have to watch some of his older stuff. Yeah, sure. Sure, he's got his niche. You know, he's a niche earther. He's got his little niche. But as far as the whole topic goes, I think the debate is fallacious. And he doesn't seem very interested in a solution. And the final experiment doesn't seem to have changed the nature of the app. Thank you, Cope, and thank you. A couple of others have ordered, I think, the remaining copies. As I said, I had to reserve some, but more will be made available soon. So if you missed out on it, no big deal. We are in production now. So the IPS Insider is a monthly. And after, I think, maybe 5 or 6 issues, I'll have a different site set up specifically for taking subscriptions. But I just want to get the flow and see how many people are consistently buying. And we will set up a subscription so it's a reoccurring thing, and I'll have it out middle of each month. Yeah, I don't buy into that tiny hat stuff and all these euphemisms. What always bothers me about the groypers or the gripers, the Nick Fuentes crowd, and all the alt-right racist xenophobe types is they rely on dog whistles. Like, they're so timid and defeated and cowed. If they really believe this stuff, why are they hiding behind dog whistles and clever memes and euphemisms? Like, it's just a flaccid movement. It's not going anywhere. And I also put it in the same category as woke. And you have woke, and they're all about, you know, the white, racist West, systemic racism. And the far right is all about systemic Jews. It's like critical race theory versus critical Jew theory. And they each have their scapegoat, but they each live in their own universe of grievances and their own scapegoat for all their problems. Like, this group wants to take us into progressivism. This group's going to take us back into the past, into the pre-feminist, pre-civil rights era. And I'm just saying, I don't use these types of words. I don't play these types of games because I'm not in any of their boxes. But I observe it, and I like to understand where they're coming from. But there are certain things you can say unequivocally. And people don't like to hear some of these things, but these things are true. Like, if you were to do Venn diagrams, if you believe in chemtrails, you're probably sexist. I mean, and I can demonstrate this. Your attitudes, your beliefs might be more in line with MAGA, or not specifically MAGA, but this idealized past. If you are of the belief that aliens are demons, you probably fear immigrants, which makes you kind of a xenophobe. If you're anti-pokey, you probably have certain attitudes towards Jews. These are things that do correlate, and the lines don't cross. And I can go on the left and point out the same type of things. You know, if you're pro-pokey, you're probably scared of guns. If you love aliens, you probably want open borders, as in extraterrestrials. Like, there are correlations here. And these are boxes. I'm going to do Venn diagrams, but they're going to be squares instead of circles. It's going to be boxes. And I'll put it in the next issue. Just to give you an idea, because I don't think any of these things are organic. It's really not. It's not organic at all. All right, let's see here. Ted Stryker says, when the Insider grows, would it be a good thing to have advertisers in it? Oh, absolutely. One of the things I plan to do, as I've already done before, is transcribe interviews and put them into the issue and do cross-marketing in that way. That's one way to advertise. Another thing is, if somebody supplies any kind of content, I'll be working out some kind of promotion. I think that I want to incentivize people to contribute. Not to mention, I pay for content. So if you have anything you want to promote, a podcast, for example, I could, just put a QR code and it's scannable. One of the things about it is that every MP3, every article, every image will be downloadable just by scanning it. But as far as advertisers, yeah, I do want to have it classified at the back, and I do want to make it open. So if you want to advertise for issue 2, I will definitely place it in there. And as far as the projected growth for the Insider, it's going to be, I think, probably in the realm of 50 to 100 hard copies a month for the first few months, but it'll pick up. I also have new press passes, which will go out, and we are producing our own news. I'm doing a story right now on Cat Doe. Cat Doe, a former Trump aide, is the primary suspect in the murder of a cat. And I want to find out what happened to the cat. And I went so far as to contact the chief of police in the small town where this cat was allegedly killed and left on this person's front porch as a death threat from the deep state. I didn't buy the story at all. It looked made up and phony. But the question is, what happened to the cat? And I made some inquiries, I asked some questions, I called around, and it's sort of a mystery. But you can't just post a dead animal on your blog, claim to be persecuted, use that for clicks, and not have any kind of report to go along with it. If somebody kills something and leaves it on my porch, there's going to be a paper trail. There's going to be police reports. There's going to be a TRO, something. But no reports were made. I mean, what kind of psychopath would do something like that? And then what kind of person wouldn't report that? I mean, other people might want to know that there's a cat killer in the neighborhood. And then moreover, when they find it, we need to find out what happened. Did they put it in the trash? Because it can be exhumed and there can be a necropsy and determine the cause of death. Did a certain, I guess he's a private investigator, he considers himself this former Trump aide, did he poison it? You know, did he choke it? So anyway, I'm interested in knowing the fate of this cat. Or maybe it was a fake cat. Maybe they photoshopped it. But if that's true, then they need to answer. I'm talking about this organization, Marco Polo. They need to answer for why they fabricated such a scene. Because they were doing it, obviously, to raise money for their legal defense against the Hunter Biden lawsuit. But they'll have to explain how they can justify fabricating something to raise money. There's something illegal about it either way. And I'm not going to let it go. I'm calling it Garrett Ziegler's Dead Cat Albatross. And I'm going to have it hanging around his neck until I get answers. And one of the ways I'm going to get answers is it's going to be on the cover of Insider issue number 2. And if you're in Illinois, if you're anywhere near Altamont, I have an assignment, and this would be a paid assignment. I would like an IPR reporter to go knock on the door with a copy of the newspaper and see if we can get some kind of quote about the cat. Ted Stryker says, I rescue cats and do TNR. It sucks to hear. I hope this is fake. Well, the cat was reported to be left on their porch December 15th, 2021. And they claim it was from the FBI. They claim it was from Hunter Biden's team. So they make these claims or insinuations. But the story just came and went, and no one ever followed up on the cat. And when I couldn't find a report, I got very suspicious that maybe it was fake. And to me, it looks real, so we'll see. Okay, let's continue here, going through your comments. Yeah, so the Insider, by the way, one of the purposes of it is we have to have a parallel record of what's happening in the world. You've got the mainstream view, and then you have our perspective, which is inclusive of fakery and what isn't really knowable. So we have this agnostic realm. But by having a print record of everything we talk about month to month, PSYOP to PSYOP, we have what I call a parallel media network. And what we're growing here is a number of people who've jumped over from the mainstream media universe into the off-world stage. And the off-world stage perspective, again, is inclusive of the fakery, and we maintain an awareness. We don't just conveniently set it to the side, an awareness of the prevalence of fakery. So many people minimize the significance of fakery. Oh, these are just blips. These are just a few fake trees in a forest. It's like, no, the whole forest is fake. Okay, let's continue here. We're talking about Super Bowl. Kendrick Lamar worshiping an owl in his video probably means something. Donut, good account, says, the nationwide egg shortage is part of a fertility ritual of the Super Bowl in homage to Inanna. Egg shortage ritual, the fertility rites of the Super Bowl. Fascinating image here. He's got Kendrick Lamar sitting there and the football's between his feet like it's an egg he just laid. Like, it's hard to deny. And fertility rights, yeah, absolutely. When we talk about NASA, for example, NASAtology and its main rituals, this sun worship stuff, it's worshiping the generative forces of nature. By fertility right, we mean the life force in all its different modes of expression, not specifically just the consummation. But there is definitely this recurring theme. And early February, you have this special rite, candle mass, which is kind of usually corresponds to the Super Bowl. But as we've been following, I've been noting every Super Bowl halftime show seems to be some kind of mystery Babylon fertility rite. And this is a consistent theme, and the nomenclature matches, the color matches. It's all encoded, but it's pretty obvious. Joe Santo says, the Eagles' record is 666 wins and 665 losses. As an Eagles fan, I hope someone else would bring this up. So if the Eagles lose, it's 2 triple sixes. And some have noted that there is apparently a 666 on the LIX, like on the Super Bowl logo. Uki says donut sucks. Look, anybody on X is suspect if they have a certain number of followers, because I think what they're doing is, I think there's a lot of content farmers, and they look at all these content creators, people posting things with small accounts, and they just grab it all and they brand it as their own, and they never shout out their sources. And it's very important, in my view, to do so. The mainstream and alt media are so competitive that there isn't really any loyalty to anything, no ideal truth, none of it. It's all about clicks over truth. But from the off-world stage perspective, it makes sense for us to point out our sources so that people can trace it, so everything is traceable. And the source isn't going to be some mysterious anonymous authority. I was always against Q just because it was anonymous. Here's something someone found. And again, I'm not a big fan of the calculator people, but Luca found this. Super Bowl 59 will happen 47 years and 45 weeks after Black Sunday was released in 1977. So Black Sunday is a movie where a group called Black September hijacks a blimp, puts bombs in it, and they blow up a football stadium. So there's that. That came out 45-47. Again, Trump's hat, 4547. Okay, moving on. Plane crashes onto busy highway in deadly fireball. Small aircraft smashed into a building highway in Brazil, killing 2. And there was another crash, Philippines plane crash, U.S. service member contractors killed. Flight risk. They should have paid attention to the movie poster. I saw that movie poster with Mark Wahlberg. I'm like, I'm not getting in on any planes. And sure enough, ever since that movie's been out, it's just been one after another. Trump says U.S. will own and develop Gaza Strip. We may talk about this. Now, this is interesting because we often talk about the big script. And for those who are incredulous and skeptical about this concept of the meta script, I can break it down very simply. If you accept the fact that some news stories are faked and that the fakery is beyond just factions, that it's ubiquitous fakery that both sides are taking part in, and you can name any major psyop or series of psyops to kind of corroborate this, but if we can admit that some of it's fake, well then the writers of the fakery, and this fakery is always integrated with the entertainment, they would constitute what I would call metascriptors, meaning it's a script that transcends any individual movie or news cycle, but it's like a long-term script, which does in fact become our history. If you write a drill into existence, like planes crashing into building as a drill, you write this as a script for mass casualty simulations, you perform it, and then it happens for real, as it actually happened. what I'm pointing out is that when they fake an event, it has to have a story, a script. It has to be like a movie. It's fundamentally no different than a movie when we're talking about fabricated news and propaganda. So who are these writers? Well, these writers, and we've identified many, are propagandists working for the government, and they happen to it happens to be comprised of many very popular writers and directors and others who've been co-opted. Everything's been co-opted from the top down. Like there is no real grassroots to a certain extent. Everything has been so compartmentalized. I mean, look what they've done with the media. They've done the same with everything. But now, here is Sean Ryan show, and they're talking about the book of Revelations being used as some kind of playbook, manipulating events so they align with this story. And that's what we're talking about. If you look at the book of Revelation as truthers, or as the general public takes it, it's a fiction. It's a story that is being apparently deliberately superimposed. We often talk about the various elements of it that show up in the psyops, but let me play this clip here, because here's what he says. There are people in power deliberately scripting the book of Revelation to bring about Armageddon. I think they're Satanists who worship the dark force. Now, you can ignore the second part of what he said. The scripting is real, but the Satanist and dark force is designed to hook the right wing. You know, this is part of this bifurcated psy war, and the right wing is manipulated. And that's why they've been taught that aliens are demons. Tucker Carlson, aliens are demons. One of them scratched him in his bed. But let me play this clip.
You know. I just, I think we're living in the worst possible times right now, that if we don't make some changes, there's going to be some major disasters about to happen. And it's man-made. It's not solar flare. It's not any of that. It's...
Anyway, more doomsayers. Thank you. Appreciate you feeding the crack, Gwen. Says the IPS, thanks for your support. Oh, yes. Frighteningly external reality. And presumably the flat earth didn't create itself. If it did, what created that potentiality? Good question. Gondola wishes infinite plane society, brought to you by Pfizer. Yeah, anti-vax is a cult. You're more focused on going after the non-believers than solving the problem. And that's really what it comes down to. And it's a bunch of virtue signaling. And I would argue, too, that anti-vax was created by the same people who created pro-vax. I mean, if you look at the Event 201 event, the tabletop exercise that preceded the 2020 pandemic, if you look at that event, they had already planned for resistors, for anti-vaxxers, for militant anti-vaxxers refusing to lock down. So you're a propaganda mule for the controlled opposition in the MSM. There's nothing skeptical about the position of being anti-vax. Like, I don't really know why people are still carrying on with it in 2025. You've been discredited. Your worst nightmares did not come true, and they never do. Another doomsayer here. Vaxageddon never happened. When it does happen, I'll contact you, and you can say I told you so. But it's not going to happen. You have to let the propaganda, leave the propaganda behind. It's wasting your bandwidth. Like, why aren't you scared of 5G towers? Like, I think about the selectivity people exercise when they choose what their main issue is. Like, I'm afraid of this. This is my main fear. And your main fear was brought to you by, programmed into you by, the breadcrumbs were put there by the PSYOP entertainment complex. So I'm not here for Pfizer, but you are here on behalf of the PSYOP entertainment complex. And if you are a propaganda mule working for the controlled opposition, how are you any different from being controlled opposition? You're just an unpaid crisis actor playing out a world stage movie script. Like, I don't believe in your cause. I don't believe in this guy's cause either. Okay, Henderson Solomon, Mind Virus. This is from Raw Story. This is interesting. Oh no, I know it was a joke, but I'm saying in general, anti-vaxxers have been kind of mad at me, and I'm like, get over it at this point. You've lost your credibility. I'm sorry it didn't happen. I wish it did. It would have been great, I'm sure, but it didn't happen. And that's another reason it's fake. Because people often say, how come the climate change people never celebrate the fact that the oceans didn't rise up, that the skies didn't fall, the world didn't end? How come they never celebrate it? How come Al Gore isn't given some kind of a trophy? Like, I solved global warming. It's not happening to the extent. I slowed it down. Like, they never take credit for having solved it. And the anti-vaxxers never take credit for having stopped Vaxageddon. Now, this is from Raw Story, Henderson Solomon. This is something I wanted to bring up because we brought up Ye, or Yadolf. This is connected to Yadolf and this idea of online communities radicalizing people, infecting them with disease X, with the madness, causing them to go out and do something violent. So this is again from Raw Story. This group called the DEPROgRAM Collective, part of an iterative effort to promote accelerationist violence to bring about the collapse of society. Henderson Solomon posted things from the DEPROgRAM Collective. It says this group was named a global terrorist entity by the U.S. State Department. So if you haven't heard of DEPROgRAM, it came out in 2019, and it says it was a tight-knit group that produced PDF files that combined terrorist propaganda, white supremacist hate, and tactical guidance. DEPROgRAM's propaganda venerates white supremacist mass murderers as saints. DEPROgRAM's publications function, this is from the Raw Story, like a virus that finds a receptive host in the fringe online extremist communities, such as Soyjack, and infects the individual, who attacks society at large through mass shootings and other lone actor violence. Now, I called this out when Musk took over Twitter and called it X. I said, this is going to be the vector for the mind virus that turns people into rage killers. And this is all the monkey symbolism, the ape god symbolism, the rage virus from 28 Days Later, Civil War, the virus coming from the media, from the screens, the mind virus that justifies censorship. Because unlike other mind viruses that just make people do dumb things, this mind virus makes people kill. This is the one we can all agree. Look what Musk did. He opened it up. And, Musk, of course, his buddy, Ye, is named in the manifesto. And Henderson Solomon is being described as a receptive host who caught a mind virus that turned him into a white supremacist killer. This is the narrative that they've been building and building and building. And it's pretty obvious, you can see it now, how long-term this would have the effect of getting a general consensus built up around the idea that free speech is dangerous. Just like you need to have a lockdown to prevent viruses from spreading, this is going to be the justification for locking down the internet to stop the flow of mind viruses. And they've been building this up. Lean Dion says, same exact time Australian government passed controversial hate speech bill. John South says, the chat doesn't show up on your live stream view anymore. Oh, yes. The code's not processing. I had to fix it. Now, this is intriguing. Diana Pasulka describes rituals done in the U.S. space program. So we were talking about this NASAtology and how it's a mystery school, that ultimately the Super Bowl is cloaking what the power elite are really a part of when it comes to their cult, their astrotheological cult. It's not Christian. It is highly focused on the sun, but it also seems to be more pantheistic and even animistic. It even has some archaic notions attached to it regarding immortal souls, reincarnation, and magic. All the stuff is kind of tied into it. And I often talk about how You can't separate NASA from its origins with Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, Marjorie Cameron, movies, science fiction, and what you would call Mystery Babylon or the mystery schools, Thelema, where Jack Parsons, of course, fuses with the science fiction, and that's what I'm suggesting here. I call it NASAtology. It's basically Scientology with better special effects, but they're both space religions, and both of these space religions are actually rooted in an archaic worldview, which they're now dressing up with science. Well, this is someone describing how in secret, behind the scenes at NASA, there are rituals done that seems to be some kind of worship of gods and goddesses. Here's what she says. In the space program, rituals that involved Obama and using photos of gods and goddesses done for what Tim Taylor described as, quote, our sponsors. You're setting it up into space. Who's up? Oh, this is all crazy here. I'm trying to get to the part where she talks about how they read the stuff in Latin. She says, our space program today has really interesting rituals associated with it. Certain launches at Cape Canaveral, maybe not all of them, but they had images of Roman gods and goddesses put on the rockets. They would use Latin on their patches. They would have specific rituals that would sometimes involve U.S. presidents and the position, the president at a certain point where astronomical events would happen. They were positioned there. It goes on to talk about the role of the Obamas in these strange rituals, but she goes on to say, I'm a scholar of religion. I know a ritual when I see one. It goes on to say they were using Latin. It was not medieval Latin. It was a particular form, like it's Roman theology, like they're using the images of Roman gods and phrases. So let me go ahead and play a short clip from, this is, again, her name is Diana Pasulka, and she's talking about rituals that she observed at Cape Canaveral.
Specific rituals that they would do, sometimes involving U.S. presidents. They would position the presidents at a certain point where astronomical events, would happen. And this, so
Like
Tyler had,
like the president of the United States?
yes, the president of the United States. They didn't know what they were doing. They were just being positioned there. So, they're like, stand here, Mr. Obama or President Obama. And he would stand there with his wife and look this direction. It was part of the whole thing. And there were photos. He has photos of all of that.
I mean, can you be a little more specific? Why would they stand him in a
Well,
certain...
see, okay, so this is obviously some type of ritual, and I don't know why they're doing it. I just know that I'm a scholar of religion. I know a ritual when I see one. He didn't even understand it. So I noticed that they were using Latin, and I noticed it wasn't medieval Latin. I was like, this is a particular form of Latin. It seems like it's Roman theology. So, they're using the images of Roman gods. And I would ask him, I said, why are you using the images of Roman gods? Why are you putting them on your mission patches and also utilizing Latin phrases from that time period? I mean, you're sending it up into space. Who up in space is going to read Latin? And his answer was, our sponsors.
Our sponsors. Very intriguing. I first looked into the space program critically after having read a bit about Parsons and Hubbard and all these things, but it was when I was looking at the names of the rockets and I was just recognizing here, it appears to be, or rather it is, syncretism. When you look at the rocket launches, the missions, it's highly symbolic, but these are reiterations of previous bodies of symbolism and they all have ritualistic import, specifically Egyptian gods. She mentions Roman stuff, there's also that, there's also Greek. The names are all highly significant. It's not just decoration. And the rocket is an obelisk. It's a symbol of the earth god. And it's primarily that. Its primary purpose is religious pageantry. It's not really going to take you to some distant paradise in the sky. That's fake. Dragons, reptilians, people are posting images of their patches. So Obama being involved in some kind of rituals. There's another one here. The subject, this gets into ufology. I don't want to get too deep into it because most of these individuals still believe they're going to space. So it gets into that realm of paranormal, but I think it's interesting. I'm going to look more into this person and I'll see what else I can find. Okay, moving on. Conspiracy alarmist said he saw Luigi's slogan, "Deny, Defend, Depose," on a handwritten black marker graffiti at Union Square, trendy area in Manhattan. Hey, they're selling Luigi Mangione t-shirts at the mall here. I've seen Luigi posters that say class warfare. No war, but class war. You know, we're living in the Joker movie. And that's one of the main inspirations. In fact, I saw this trailer for a movie called Mickey 17 with the actor who plays Batman. And he's got this hoodie on and he looks just like Luigi. Probably not a coincidence. I've been finding a lot of strange paranormal NASA stuff. People making strange claims. I'll probably get back into this stuff later. This is interesting. This guy, and maybe you can corroborate this. This man claims that ever since Trump and Elon cut off USAID or US aid funding, the skies have cleared up, that they have stopped the chemtrails. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this. Anybody else take note of the skies being suddenly chemtrail free? Let me play this clip here. He sounds very credible. Again, this man claims that ever since they cut off US aid funding, no one's paying for the chemtrail juice. Because someone has to be financing it. And one of the things that's integral to the whole chemtrail conspiracy is that it's being done by the government, that this is a government operation.
And I want you to look up right now. Look up in your skies right now. Do you know what I don't see? Is any fucking chemtrails. There are rumors out there that even the chemtrails were being funded by USAID. I want to know from anybody out there, does anybody see any shit in their sky? Because I have not seen it.
No, this guy out there in the middle of nowhere has not seen any chemtrails, and there aren't any. He hasn't seen it, then there aren't any, right? We do live in this man's solipsistic universe. If he hasn't seen it, it doesn't exist. He speaks for all of us. I'm sorry about the AC/DC background. I don't want to get a flag, so I can't play that track, but it's a good song, but the QAnoners play this track whenever they're presenting what they call a boom. Like, look, Q just won. MAGA won. We just took a hit at the deep state and we took out their chemtrail department. Like, they believe this stuff. All right, let's move on. There are people posting about cloud seeding. Hilarious. I'm sorry, but chemtrail belief is technically a superstition. It is now a superstition. If you believe in it, you can no longer call it an ology. It's not a study. You're not a chemtrailologist. You haven't done any formal research into it. The best you can say is it's a superstition. And the reason why is laziness. If you believe in these things and you haven't researched the establishment cause of it and the predictability that goes back many decades of contrail formation, then what you're asserting is absurd. It's actually intellectually indefensible and lazy. Like, we need to stop it with the chemtrails. I mean, it's so bad that it's like alternate climate change. And I've been seeing it evolve where people are saying, oh no, now they're doing climate manipulation. So it's climate manipulation, climate change. These are distinctions without a difference. Like, how did they manage to get truthers onto Team Greta? This is right out of Edward Bernays' propaganda. We're talking about manipulating minds en masse. That's what we're looking at here. All right, let's move on here. I'm going through my points of interest for the day. I guess the main thing is we have a P.O. box, so you can send me cult literature. I'm sorry, you can send me your whatever. And I will read letters. They don't have to be handwritten. You know, you can print them out, but if you prefer to write, you can write. And it's at ips.monster. Let me go ahead and open up phones, I suppose. Sunday is going to be a big truther holiday. Happens every year. Ye is spiraling. Let's see if he says anything good. It's all caps. Ye goes DEFCON 2. And they're still calling it DEFCON. Okay, so he's mad at Jews, mad at Jews. Is this going to make a dent? Do people care anymore? Okay, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like he's repeating a previous set of claims. Just the usual stuff. Hardly worth looking at. Who's writing his scripts? He needs a better script writer. And Yadolf, yeah, he was called Yadolf a bit ago. All right, well, no more chemtrails. I guess that's good news. If you go to my shop, by the way, if you're international, you can order the IPS Insider there. Adam Weishaupt's birthday was February 6th. I kind of missed that. It was yesterday. Founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, coincidentally founded the same day that the Declaration of Independence. Is that it? May Day, 1776. Also the birth date of crisis actor. I'm not going to go down that trail just yet. I do want to get into the Super Bowl stuff. There is quite a bit there, but it seems to be indicating a nuke. One of the stories that we're seeing popping up is Sum of All Fears. And they're hyping up this nuke scenario. But as far as I can tell, if I'm basing it solely off of what we have been conditioned to expect, it's looking to me like Seattle. So here's from Donut. The superb owl ritual is a massive egg fertility ritual. Interesting, again. If you look at the LIX, he's found 6s in it. Not surprising. But connecting with fertility. Again, there's a theme here. And I'll release a video tomorrow to kind of go deeper into this before the event itself. Slow news week, though. One current thing after another, and nothing really sticks. But Trump has set the stage. Trump has said that if Iran takes him out, there are already orders in place to, quote, obliterate Iran. So that's something to look forward to. And this all... and one more point here. Because we're looking at the body of media, entertainment in particular, as it pertains to the news cycles, as they form our history, as they bend reality to their will. And you really can't separate the Trump head wound scenario from the nuclear bomb. These things are always positively correlated. So it's kind of interesting here again. There are numerous ways we can show this. Like when he went back to Butler 84 days after he was shot. The connections between these events are all throughout the predictive programming, and they happen in real life. So here he is saying, if he gets capped, nuke Iran.
You guys for taking out so long.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do. Not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated.
All right, they would be obliterated. Gondola Wish says Alaska plane disappeared, 10 people, no survivors. Okay, they found the plane, no survivors. Yeah, flight risk again. It's kind of been the thing. Superb Owl. Yep, you're correct. Superb Owl says Harks. As I pointed out here at the beginning, the halftime show performer is Kendrick Lamar, and the big talk is about his song Not Like Us. And the video ends where he walks up to an owl in a cage. So this is the halftime show song. And it's got this owl in it. And many have said that Super Bowl, again, references some kind of deity. Not really a stretch, if you ask me, and it's predictable. Yes, that was Trayvon's birthday on the 5th. Trayvon Martin, BLM. Trayvon Martin was this generation's Emmett Till. And George Zimmerman, total actor. Old psyops. But, sometimes it's good to retro auto hoax. Go back in time, see what you may have glossed over. And what you'll find, because people used to say to me all the time, I think they're letting us know. I think they're showing us how fake it is because the old system is dying. And it's like, no, put down the hopium. Nobody's trying to help you. There are no white hats. Nobody is waking up. Nobody's dropping you any hints. You're only paying attention now. That's the difference. Because if you look back 10, 20, 30 years, the psyops have always been terrible. Crisis actors have always sucked. Always. We call them the gags. The Government Actors Guild. They have never been good. They've always been poorly performed, and I think it's because they draw from a shallower talent pool than, say, NASA. Like, who are they drawing from when they're picking out their actors? And so, again, my point here, really, I think, is that nobody is showing us anything. If you're noticing things are fake, it's because they've always been fake. It's the status quo. Fake is the status quo. It's the rule, not the exception. And it's not new. We were born into a deep faked world. Deep fakery is not new. Deep fakery has been going on long before AI. They just use traditional spycraft, masks, disguise. Gondola Wish says, this is a bit out of left field, but a lot of these crisis actor sacrifices like Michael Brown are actually clones from IVF. Interesting. I don't think that's true, but it's kind of an interesting concept. If you've seen They Cloned Tyrone, maybe it is true. They Cloned Tyrone came out last summer, and it had Jamie Foxx in it, and it had there's an amazing array of connections between Trayvon Martin, Tyree Nichols, Rodney King, the BLM martyrs, and the movie They Cloned Tyrone. And They Cloned Tyrone is kind of this Truman Show-like area of the city where there's mind control experiments where people are being killed and then replaced. Like they're clones of people. And it's kind of a combination of Dark City, Truman Show, and I guess Josie and the Pussycats, which is about music mind control. So if you haven't seen it, They Cloned Tyrone, Jimmy Foxx is in it. But my point is, in that movie, they made this case that there were in fact clones being used for these purposes. And it's kind of intriguing because if you remember, before the movie came out, Jamie Foxx had supposedly died on the movie set and was resurrected. And then later, and I saw this on the news, it was on CNN. He was 55 years old. They said this happened. In fact, he was on a commercial with an owl, an eyeglass commercial, Jamie Foxx, at the same time that, I have this on a blog somewhere. So I noticed Jamie Foxx on a commercial for eyeglasses with an owl on it. And then I see him in the news. They say Jamie Foxx, 55, collapses on a movie set, and they bring him back. And this had already set up some red flags because he's heavily associated with the launch of BLM and Trayvon Martin. And this was in the wake of the Tyree Nichols event. But then later, when he comes back, people say he doesn't look the same. He's been cloned. Jamie Foxx has been cloned. So he gets out in front of it and he says, no, I've not been cloned. His PR people know he's not been cloned. And then like a week later, They Cloned Tyrone comes out and he is, of course, in it. And there are some connections, intriguing connections between the names, like Trayvon, Tyree Nichols, Tyrone. Then there's Terry from Rebel Ridge. Then there's Tyreek Hill. But these names and the stories, there's a lot of repetition here. So to get back to your point, all of these manufactured martyrs are coming from the same playbook, and they have the same script writers. Are they really killing people? I tend to think no. Although, I mean, if so, it's completely psychotic. But I don't think so. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't corruption and people aren't getting killed, but what I'm saying is when it comes to psyops, these are controlled events in closed movie sets. So there's no reason to have any uncontrollable variable, like something goes wrong. The reason why you don't have whistleblowers, and we're talking about decades of fake news, maybe a century. All this fake news, where are the whistleblowers? Well, they've signed NDAs, but NDAs are not binding unless there's criminal activity. And murder would be criminal, and I'm just saying they're not killing anybody. Everything they're doing is completely legal. Lean Dion says, not like us is a massive Drake diss. They call him a colonizer and a ped. Drake label is called OVO, and the logo is an owl. The battle between them was an influential op, and they're both on the same label. Thank you for that background information. OVO looks like an owl. So that's the owl connection. And then you have the Super Bowl, superb owl. Yeah, if you want the tabloid, go to insider.shop. Again, that's just a quick link to the shop, or you can just go to any of the sites. But if you don't get number one before it sells out, because I have some individuals who have to receive it first, so most of them had to be set aside. If you don't get it, I'm ordering more copies next week when I order issue number 2. And I'm trying not to, I'm not interested in doing pre-orders. I want to have everything in-house so that I can guarantee next day shipping. I'm staying ahead of this one. We're 2 issues ahead at least as far as content. Gondola says they think nothing of disposing of clones because they're soulless meat suits. It's an interesting concept, but I think it's far more likely that they're using hyper-realistic casualty simulation dummies. It's highly unlikely that anybody's dying. But, it's interesting conjecture. I happen to think a lot of the clone talk was artificially introduced into this arena to cover up anybody talking about hyper-realistic masks. It's easier to discredit somebody if they believe that this celebrity's been cloned than if they knew the truth and they said this person is a deep fake. This person doesn't exist. This person is a hyper-realistic mask that is utterly foolproof. Like, we're not supposed to know about it. We're not supposed to know how advanced deep fakery has always been. Like, there may be people, and I can't identify any, there may be people that we collectively grew up knowing through the medium of television and entertainment who may not actually exist. I mean, there was this somewhat credible rumor that Benicio del Toro doesn't exist. That this is a character played by Brad Pitt wearing one of these hyper-realistic masks. And these include hands. They have hands that you can put on that are indistinguishable from real hands. Everything can be. If they got pores, they got hair, they got veins, they got tattoos. They're super realistic. So my point here is we don't know the extent of the fakery. I mean, think about someone like Benicio del Toro, if true, if he's a fiction. It wouldn't be hard to create. I mean, what do you think spycraft is all about? False identities, false backstories, infiltrating people into society. It's like time travelers. They didn't exist on this timeline, but now they do. And now they're real. That's kind of how it works with crisis actors. It's a simulation. They don't actually exist, but they've been designated real by the TV. Now they're real. And that's one point to bring up as well, is that something is real if it's designated real, because the ultimate authority is the television, is the screen. We live in the desert of the designated real. Objective facts don't really matter. Hark says, Tim is right on point. Look up any of these so-called politicians on IMDb. They all show up. Well, everybody shows up on IMDb. It harvests information now. But it's kind of remarkable to look at how many of these politicians are skilled, not just in acting, but also in hypnosis. That's a rabbit trail I was kind of delving into at one point. I think we're looking at the theater of Psywar. And I think that this system is far more sophisticated than truthers give it credit for. And the mainstreamers don't see it. It's totally invisible. But to really believe this, you've got to look at Edward Bernays and understand the role of perception management and marketing and how societal changes can be attributed to mass media influence. You know, people, I mean, it's interesting to see how 1984 was you would consider 1984 to be a dystopia. Like, oh, we don't want to live in a future where there's no privacy, and everywhere you go, your thoughts are being recorded. Everything you say is being recorded. Nothing is private anymore. But now, here we are in 2025, and privacy is kind of a thing of the past. You shouldn't have any presumption of privacy. And moreover, people are commodifying their privacy. They're publishing their thoughts online, and they're putting everything out there, eliminating privacy voluntarily. We are self-surveillancing. And the social media acts as a mind-reading device and a confessional. So we are self-policing, self-surveilling at all times. Like, this is way worse than Orwell predicted. And it's irreversible, and it's never going to be fixed. So again, I'm not trying to be pessimistic here, but I'm saying you can't fix this from the inside. Okay, phones are open if you want to call in. Thank you, Frank Murr. Arrived here with a bucket full of titanium blue wrenches. So if you're in the chat, you may have one awarded to you. And these basically give you access to members-only content, and there'll be more of that in the coming days. So for example, Busy56, Penguinotti, Tommy Retail Army, Eugenie Retrospectology, SLERR Con, Mac, Lean, Dion, Hall Billy Homestead, Mango Penguins, and Newful have all received the coveted Blue Wrench Lodge wrench. If you don't know the backstory of the wrenches, when we first started this channel, there were so many trolls getting into our chat that we couldn't have a cohesive conversation. We had the Hitlerites, we had the Bible flat earthers, we had the different agendas. You know, like every single group that came in had an agenda. And we're just trying to figure out what's happening. This is before we learned about the extent of media fakery. And we realized that if we don't ban certain people, they're going to drown out the conversation. We're not trying to create an echo chamber, but we do want to have a think tank. And you can't think if it's not managed properly. So I started banning people who were simply disruptive. And then I realized I don't have enough time to ban all these people. And back then we had hundreds of people in the live stream. So what I did is I gave a wrench to everybody that had been vetted. And the vetting process is simple. You send me an email and I give your channel moderator status. And over time, we created this de facto membership system where all the IPS members who had been vetted were now armed with wrenches. And the rule was ban everybody. Once we had 400 people, we didn't need anybody else. So we just reflexively banned anybody, and if they cared, they could email me and get in. But it was all about quality control. And if somebody was violating those rules, which was rare, they could lose their wrench, and then the others with wrenches would bash them into pulp. I'm Nati. I will hand out a wrench this evening. So if you comment, you'll get a wrench. But the history of the wrench has really been the history of the formation of a think tank. The elevation of our standards for discourse had to be enforced by force, unfortunately. And if you look at the dungeon, you know, it was just, and a lot of people had resentment. A lot of people resented. I mean, to be honest, I would ban anti-vaxxers on site. And does that make me a fascist? Does that make me a Pfizer shill? You know, I ban chemtrail believers. Does that make me a shill for the airlines? Yeah, it is true. Whenever I go on a spiel just debunking chemtrails, they add to my frequent flyer miles. I get free flights. Okay, let's move on. Phones are open, 505-510-4226. I have this mind map I want to get into. Maybe tomorrow for Infinite Planes Saturn Day. And it connects Helter Skelter to the Turner Diaries to Kanye West, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes. Connects them all together as part of a concerted psyop. One of the things we do here is we map out the psyops. We map out the correlations between the news, the media events on the world stage that are presented as news, rather, the entertainment, the arts, and all the main actors in these events. I mean, consider the significance of The Madness, #1 movie on Netflix. Main character is basically Elon Musk, and people are noticing this. It foreshadowed Luigi Mangione, but it contains a number of main characters who are clearly based on real people in alternative media. Like, it is so closely aligned that I'm surprised that they're not suing Netflix for their likeness being stolen, but they're not reacting to it. Like, I would imagine that if Laura Loomer wasn't a shill, she would say, "Hey Netflix, why did you put me in The Madness as Lauren Jennings, the crazy conspiracy theorist girl who gets killed by a nerve agent?" If I was Stu Peters, I would say, "Hey Netflix, why did you have me dismembered in the opening scene?" And I'd go down the list. I mean, really, Elon Musk ought to wonder, why did they have him assassinated in The Madness? And ever since then, on Blue Sky, there have been endless calls, ever since Luigi, for Musk to get it. And then you had that Green Beret blowing up a Cybertruck in front of Trump Tower. And the significance there to me is the Green Beret. It makes me think of Luigi and the Luigi character, the Green Beret, and Joker, the green hair. There's some symbolism here attached to the Chaos Agent. All right, let's see here. Gondola Wish says, Garrow says Elvis is going to be inserted into Trump on August 4th. Yeah, Drastic Liars has a view on things that it does get supernatural at some point. And if he's right, I'm going to hell. There's no other way about it. And I hope it's not true. I don't know if there's but like, the thing is, I have no intention of repenting or changing my mind or becoming a believer. But if something supernatural happens, I'm going to be skeptical about it. But if something does happen that's irrefutable, then yeah, I'll have a change of mind. But not before. And I hope that's not held against me, but I think it is. And to me, that's unfair. Isabel Ann says, the LA fires were 33 days from the superb owl. National Propaganda Radio has a big segment on owls today. So owls are being put out there in a concerted message. We're talking about Kendrick Lamar, owl in the video, owl connections, Super Bowl coming, and now this. I call it concerted messaging, not coincidences, especially if it goes across all these different areas, but it intersects in your mind. DEPROgRAM Truth says, they move on from these episodes so quick. The Cybertruck episode, completely forgot about it already. Oh yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's the public attention span, in the attention economy, the competition. They want people to care, so they got to constantly needle them. It's like an emotional manipulator. They never let you rest. It's always a game. It's always a trigger. It's to keep you off balance so you can be cajoled and moved. And this is all by design. I'm going through my headlines for the IPS Insider issue 2, and it's a list. It's like drone swarm, fires, plane crash, plane crash, plane crash, assassination, assassination, plane crash. But it's just going through. And I'm going to do a deep breakdown of Leave the World Behind. Even though it seems like the Insider is a niche publication for people who figured out how fake news is, many aspects of it will have a broader appeal, and I am aiming for that. And I think that the breakdowns that we do of some of these movies might have a wide appeal to people who just like movies and digging into the subtext. Weren't owls a big part of the Harry Potter thing? Joe Santos says, I think no one goes to hell unless they're so bad the person... Yeah, it's kind of a folk myth more than anything. There isn't really any biblical basis for it. I personally don't believe in it. I do believe that consciousness doesn't end with bodily death. And what I believe to be communication with the recently deceased at various points has convinced me that no, the dead aren't going anywhere right away. I mean, if ever. I don't know how it works. I think there might be a period of time where they may be active, but I'm not sure how it works. There's this cult called the Church Universal Triumphant, and they believe that we're in the midst of a spiritual battle, light and dark, souled beings versus unsouled beings, but that there are some who choose to remain behind post-mortem in some kind of a limbo in order to aid those who are trying to escape this place with their souls intact. They call them ascended masters. Anyway, that cult had this prophecy that China and Russia was going to nuke everybody back in like the late 80s, and they all moved into these bunkers. They started chanting to the ascended masters and channeling the archangels. Well, it didn't happen. We didn't get nuked. The world still stands. And the cult did not disband. And this is an important point. This big cult, they say the world's going to end. They go into bunkers. They sell all their stuff. They alienate their families. They're totally brainwashed. The doomsday prophecy doesn't come true. They don't just wake up and leave the cult. They say, we prayed so hard that we stopped it. We saved the world. Now, no one's going to believe them, but they're satisfied with that, and the cult didn't die. We see the same phenomenon all the time. Flat Bob says, you die, you go to the spirit world, you come back, rinse and repeat. I think so. And I think the rinse part is where they wipe your memory of your previous incarnation. I mean, I think there's this concept of the soul in some like Egyptian concept I'd read about where it's divided. Like you got the terrestrial soul, you have some higher soul, and then you have the one that's created during your lifetime. The sense of self, that's like the integration of the two. And depending on how you live, that part may or may not achieve immortality. Like there's that scale at the end, heart and a feather. And this is, did your material aspects outweigh your spiritual? And if so, you lose. And I think that may be the contest here. I think that this is, in a sense, something of a game. And I think winning just means not losing in that sense. You have to retain your soul spark, but everything is designed to convince you it doesn't even exist so they can just disabuse you of it. Diana South says, Flynn repeated that prayer to the MAGA cult. Oh yeah, yes. General Flynn, Michael Flynn, had the MAGA people reciting the prayers of the I Am Temple to summon the ascended masters and the archangels. Okay, let's see here. Flat Bob says, we all agree to come here. Interesting. Ted Stryker says, I like your story about how you asked someone if they believed the end was near and they wouldn't give you their car. Oh yeah, that was Kathy. Cathexis. Cathexis tried to convince me in the summer of 2017 that the world was going to end on September 23rd. And I'm like, it's going to end? And he said, well, it's going to be ending on the 23rd. Tribulation, end of the world. And so I said, well, can you arrange to give me your car and whatever you have in your bank account, and I'll put it to good use on September 24th, 2017, since you won't need it, since you're being raptured, which he believed. And he said he wouldn't give me his car. I'm like, why wouldn't you give me your car? Or do you not really believe it? It didn't make sense to me. It just seemed like a contradiction. So then September 24th came, and he said, well, when I said it was the end of the world, I just meant it was the beginning of the end. So the 7-year tribulations begin. So the tribulation started September 23rd, 2017. That has passed. The 7 years have passed. So congratulations. You survived the tribulations. We all survived the end of the world, the Great Reset. The world's not going to end. That's another kind of misconception. And so many people make their entire living off this. Joined to the chat by Math Powerland says, I am not Math Powerland. I thought Math Powerland turned into Math Power Clay. I remember he specifically said he owned the flat earth, which I'm not disputing this. But then I find that he's selling mud, like dirt, like therapeutic dirt, cosmetic mud. You know, stuff you put in your hair and on your face, brush your teeth with it. I've seen it all. And I'm not doubting the efficacy of it. I've never used it. But selling dirt is literally selling the flat earth. If you own the flat earth, why couldn't you just sell it? Just sell it by the brick. It's genius. Make more money selling the flat earth than selling flat earth maps. Thinkerbell says, books on this, Destiny of Souls, Journey of Souls, Hypnotherapist, Regress Clients. I've come across some of that, and I think it's intriguing. I think it really is. I think it's also notable that souls aren't part of the dominant paradigm. You know, we're evolved apes, and we have these big egos that make us think that we matter. That's why you think you have a soul. It's really just ego. But nothing means anything, and we are just accidents of nature. It's blind luck we got here, and everything's grinding to a halt. Like, if that's true and we're all soulless and this is a dead universe, you know, that's one thing. I could accept that, but I've had experiences that contradict this, which again makes the question of souls very interesting. And I think it's notable how it's just been kind of shoveled to the side. It's like talking about magic or ghosts or Bigfoot. It's kind of put into the realm of, you know, religious belief, but I think there should be some rigor applied to our definitions. For example, like, what do we mean when we say soul, for example? Like, I happen to think that our consciousness is compartmentalized, and that oftentimes what people think is happening, or when they think something is a message from God, or they're having some kind of divine experience, I think that what they're really doing is they're integrating and decompartmentalizing their consciousness. That your own, for lack of better terminology, higher self could easily be confused with a higher power, an external higher power, a God, an angel. And I actually think that mainstream religions are a trap designed to make you externalize every concept of God, so you don't realize your own inherent divinity. And this is very consistent with how mind control works in general, but this is soul control. If you look at how the media gets you to outsource your perception and to put the authority of this prepackaged version of things over what you experience. So right there, you are outsourcing a great deal of your consciousness and your worldview formation. And I think similarly, religions are designed to have you outsourcing your spirituality. Okay, let's continue here. Gondola Wish says, it's way more complicated than souls, not just one level. There are oversouls. Yeah, I get the idea too, that there's a tug of war, some kind of a fight. I think that there are beings that, for all intents and purposes, are like, I mean, the word evil is kind of vague. But a way to describe it would be like, sort of like in the if you've seen the series, The Squid Games. You know, these people are caught up in this game and everybody dies. But you have some people who are working for the game, and their objective is to kill everybody before they make it to the end. And I think that we live in the Squid Games, basically. That a great number of people in the world may not have a higher celestial origin, may not be incarnated beings, but may in fact be, you know, AI simulation. People talk about the stuff like some NPCs. Well, I think there may be a large swath of the population. Maybe it's 50-50. But I don't think that everybody is ensouled. I don't think everyone has good intentions. I think there's an objective war on souls, on consciousness. I have a very Manichaean view of things. I do think that they're right. And it was a major world religion at some point, but I do think the Manichaeans have it right. Like, I do believe in a few things. When I say, and I hate to say I'm a believer. I have my reasons, but I know that these reasons are anecdotal, and I can't use that as evidence, so I don't even try. So I have my convictions, but I don't have any way to convey them or even promote them as true, but I do not shy away from saying what I think about it. And I notice a lot of people are afraid to even discuss objective evil as a force, or soulless beings, or there even being some kind of a dualistic struggle between light and dark, that this place is inherently some kind of a trap. A lot of people shy away from that. New Age is just awash with hopium and magical thinking, but it's not realistic. There's no situational awareness in this. Like, you think the mind control operation that we talk about all the time that spans billions of minds is the extent of it? No, there's multiple levels of control, the physical, the mental, and we would be remiss if we didn't look into the spiritual dimensions of it. Thinkerbell says, what about the soul grab when we die, and those who think the moon is an alien soul processing facility? I've heard about this idea that this realm we're in is a projection from Saturn, and that the sun is transmitting the life force down, and the moon is like vacuuming up the death, and then you're in this endless loop if you go towards the light. I've heard these things. I think it's intriguing. And I think it's worth talking about. We have to have a model to discuss this. Like, what is the model of the world? Yeah, we talk about shape and stuff, but like the bigger picture, like, how do you conceptualize it? Like, I happen to think that the universe does not exist until we experience it. I think it's actually human-centric. I don't think we're latecomers to the scene. And I'm not saying I don't believe in the process of evolution. I'm not a science denier. But I don't think that science is inclusive enough of all of the available facts. Math Powerland says, if you believe in visualization techniques and being able to manifest your own reality, this place is literally under mind control, right? That's true in many ways. However, it's important to emphasize that belief doesn't create reality. For example, billions of people believe in the moon landing. It's still fake. So it didn't change anything, did it? No. The mind control works by creating a simulation of the world in your mind. And that's what they manipulate. And people think the simulation is the real thing. That's why so many truthers get tripped up when they say glitches, when they see coincidences everywhere. They think, okay, well, reality's full of glitches and coincidences. It's like, no, I'm sorry, but reality isn't what you saw in the box. That is an interpretation. But they want us to conflate the map with the territory. And I'm saying we don't have a map. And everybody's arguing from their maps. And it's like, we don't actually have a map. We don't have a complete map. The complete map we're given contains trillions of light years of emptiness. And then they don't even know what's at the edge. So I don't believe that visualization techniques cause people to manifest their reality. That's really not true. And if it is true, if you believe that, prove it. If you say you're a genie, manifest, do some genie stuff for us. I'm interested. And I am interested in various magical philosophies, the theories behind it, and what might explain how it works. But if it was as simple as visualizing things and then they manifest, I think the world would be a lot more contented. I'm not saying that doesn't play a role. But I think we have to be cognizant of arriving at a solution that has a faulty premise. Again, moon landings are fake no matter what we believe. All right, let's continue. Joe Santos says, there's a lot of mind control going on for sure. The one NFL player said his coach told him how they mind control players to teach the rookie without them realizing it. Well, I think groupthink is the main form of mind control. And groupthink is a very common facet of every faction of media, every religion. There's a point where the individual has submitted to a higher authority, and the individual perceiver is no longer the sole unit of value, but the group is. The self-sacrifice is inherent within it. Gondola Wish says, portals work on the horizontal toward dimensions. Stargates work on the vertical towards higher planes. Now, if I was to say I had a model of the universe or the world, I'm actually leaning towards John Dee. And there isn't a title for it necessarily, but so John Dee was very much associated with Gerardus Mercator. So he was very well apprised of the Copernican revolution, the globe, and all this stuff. He was an advisor on these voyages and stuff. But his own worldview really wasn't about shape. He seemed to conceptualize the universe as a plane, and the individual within the plane as a microcosm that could influence and exert control over the wider world by properly aligning themselves with the world's constituent elements, which he broke down into, like fire, water, earth, air, all these alchemical things. But John Dee is really the progenitor of ritual magic. If you trace it back, and the way it's practiced today and all these various schools of thought, it really goes back to him. And it's significant, I think, that John Dee is the person who coined British Empire. The phrase British Empire came from Dee. But my point is, his view of the world seemed to be more about it being a realm, and not his terminology, mine, but a cybernetic system, that we aren't separate from it. So when I say it's human-centric, that's literally what I mean. And I could be wrong, but I doubt it. But I'd be happy for somebody to prove me wrong. Convince me that I'm just an ape, a very evolved ape with an intellect, but soulless. I mean, the soul is what we're talking about here. We're talking about, do we have an aspect of ourselves that is non-corporeal, that isn't dependent of or a product of the body? And evidence for me really does point to non-corporeal existence. Death is a hoax. If you didn't know, death is a hoax. Thank you, Ted Stryker, C. Rowan, Me and My Drone, DEPROgRAM Truther, Reverse History, Grills Trillions, Nick Fingar, Ready or Not 31, Lickety Split, Anx G, and KKN have all received blue wrenches. Thank you very much. I'll be posting more content for members only here very soon. I'm working on a few things. If you haven't seen, I think it's called IPS Deep Dive number 1 on Trump's head wound. That one's available. I have a couple others. I'm working on a Joker deep dive. If there's any subject you want me to do a deep dive onto, or a character, I will. And there are certain world stage characters that are worth studying. Lately, we've been talking about Ye. I mean, Ye wasn't around. Then we have this shooter. We talk about Ye, and now he's back in that black skinhead form. Not a coincidence. Okay, let's move on. U.S.-Russian figure skaters were on the plane. Here is Tanya Harding. You know how many people noticed the strange coincidence of Tanya Harding appearing and Nancy Kerrigan appearing with this plane crash? Which was, again, the plane crash hitting the Black Hawk. The Black Hawk was doing a doomsday continuity of government drill. They were doing a drill when it happened. But anyway, a lot of people noticed that these two individuals came out. So this is a good example of concerted messaging. You're trying to get, this is marketing. This is perception management. You want to get everybody to look at an event. Well, you have to make it relevant to everybody. And this is a common thing in the marketing of PSYOPs. And there's a great deal of target marketing. So you get all the ice skater people involved in it. You attach it to the challenger. You have the scapegoat narrative built into Musk and Trump for firing people. The pro-government people are looking at this as a consequence of anti-government cutting back on workforces. But it's a multifaceted story, and they bring out celebrities to popularize them. Very easy to do. These celebrities are pawns. Do a deep dive on Steven Seagal. Okay, Steven Seagal. Doesn't he kind of crisis act as a cop? Kind of a LARPer? Very interesting guy. I'll take a look. As far as like world stage characters, I like to break down their constituent parts. For example, Musk being a Frankenstein, Trump being a Frankenstein. There's Jeff Bezos. He's part Dr. Evil, part man who fell to earth, part Nimrod, builder of the Tower of Babel. It's fascinating to break down these various characters. But I also want to kind of look back at Ye now that he's back in the news and kind of trace back his connection to Elvis, to David Bowie, the man who fell to earth, and all this stuff. I mean, he's very much integrated into the bigger story. And again, I don't think that you can be that integrated into the PSYOP entertainment complex and be a Truman Show dupe, like not be aware of it. And I kind of think that you can guarantee that someone like Ye is very well aware of his role as an instigator. Not that they write their own lines. All right, this is a short clip. This individual is talking about the moon landing and how it appears to be a remote-controlled moon buggy. I have my preferred debunk of Apollo 11, and there are many. And I also argue that predictive and concurrent programming is evidence of fakery. If something in the news just happened on Netflix, it's fake. There's no reason to assume otherwise. But my main debunk, my go-to when it comes to Apollo 11 is, where's the moon? The Earth, and the moon, you look at the relative size, the Earth is like 4 times bigger or something. It's like a quarter the size of the Earth. Here's the moon. You step off of your craft and you look out. What should you see? You should see a moonscape. The moon should extend out miles and miles and miles to the horizon. You should see craters, a plain of craters as far as the eye can see. The moon isn't so small that the curve is over the next hill. And if you look at any of the lunar footage from the ground level, you can only see the equivalent distance of a couple of, like a Walmart parking lot. That's basically what you're looking at here. There's no moon here. Where are the moonscapes? Oftentimes, what gives away a hoax isn't what they show you, but it's what is conspicuously absent. And they're showing you stuff to distract you from what's missing oftentimes. I mean, NASA is a magic show. You don't need to question it at the base. When it comes to these events, people are debunking it and they're trying to out-science the scientists with their orthodoxies. But ultimately, we're looking at a magic show. And they're faking science with magic tricks. But let me play a short clip. Pretty good breakdown here by... I'm not sure who this is. It's on X. And what you'll find is that these big X accounts will just take someone's TikTok, get the clicks off of it, get the money.
Why aren't his arms moving if he's steering it? That looks weird. Why is the horizon so close? If the moon is supposedly a quarter of the size of the Earth, which they used to say 1/6 the size, but now's not the time to get into that. If it's only a quarter of the size, why is the horizon that close? Is the horizon only 4 times further than that here on Earth? I don't think so. Looks like a studio to me.
Thank you. Exactly. Looks like a studio. Fake. It looks like a rear screen projection. But the elephant in the ISS is special effects. Nobody wants to talk about the special effects. All right, well, I'm going to run through my drop-down list here. Again, yeah, Ye's making a lot of noise. We'll follow that. He did insinuate something with Ivanka. I don't know how well that's going to play. This girl says she found a tooth in her McDonald's breakfast. She says boycott McDonald's. People here are often arguing that McDonald's serves human flesh Uh, I kind of don't buy it. She has a tattoo of a skull on her neck with a knife through it, and she's got pentagrams tattooed on her wrists.
Large orange juice. I don't ever eat McDonald's because it messes with my stomach. Heard the rumors, but I was like, you know what? I need something cheap, something quick. I gotta go into work. So I'm eating, right? This is as far as I got. Couple bites. And
A couple big bites. I mean, she took down the whole Big Mac like 2/3 of the way here, and then she found a tooth.
feel something in my mouth. And I'm thinking, oh fuck, did I chip my tooth? So I'm feeling around. Nope, not me. What's this? It's a fucking tooth.
All right, there you go. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you believe her or not. I kind of think it's a joke. I think she's made it up. But yeah, she claims that she found a tooth. It's like that, what was it? Upton Sinclair, The Jungle. Could be true, though. I don't believe they serve human meat. I stand by my contention that it's more likely they're serving life extension than something that would be deleterious to your health, because they want you to be a customer for as long as possible. Uki says, Tim, you have a Satan tattoo on your chest, though. Yeah, according to Sloppy Johnny Circucci, I have Satan tattooed on my chest. That's how good his research is. Like, what is he even talking about? He says I'm Jesuity. Like, Jesuity is Society of Jesus. If anything, I'd have Jesus tattooed on me. But, you know, you get your rumors secondhand, third hand, recycled, repurposed, refurbished rumors. It's like, I don't know. That's not good research. That's why I called him sloppy. That's sloppy research. And he wanted to debate me. It's like, well, come to Albuquerque on camera. I'll let you look down my shirt. I'll pull my shirt out for Johnny Circucci. Look down my shirt and tell me what you see. If it's not Satan, you owe me an apology. But I think that was just part of it. There was a whole slew of stories like, oh, that I stole $100,000 from the rocket guy. Yeah, we raised a bunch of money for a rocket, and I absconded with it, is what he said. It's like, no, we paid for the rocket. In fact, we didn't have enough money. I had to find alternate means to raise money. But there are many people who operate on the basis of like calling people shills. And my point here is this. I'm not saying that Sloppy Johnny is a shill. I'm saying he's probably wrong about everything, but that doesn't make him a shill. However, if you are pushing controlled opposition talking points that shills put out there for you, then you're a proxy shill. You're a useful stooge, as they say. And I'm not a stooge. And if you're not auto-hoaxing the MSM plus, the media fakery in general, you're pretty much a shill. Like I am absolved of any kind of culpability in forwarding any psyop narratives. I'm here to negate these lies. I'm not pressing some kind of agenda that's just alternate lies, because both sides are terrified, and I don't push any of these terrorist scripts. And all these scapegoat scripts are based on this, these witch hunts. You know how susceptible people are to witch hunts? It is so easy to get people into witch hunts, and they don't even have to believe in witches. They just think it's fun to see one of their enemies get roasted. And that's what we've seen. I mean, I've been the target of witch hunts in the past, and it's kind of funny. It's like, oh, he's a reptilian, he's a woman, all these different claims. I'm like, okay, you're not even being objective, but they're playing with the mob. Peanut Shell posted this. Psychic medium Roberto released a video saying something's going to happen at the Super Bowl. Maybe an explosion. Again, everybody who is anybody in the realm of gematria or psychic prophecy is stating that it's going to happen. So what does this mean? Well, they're grifters. They're going for clicks. It's sensationalism, but also it's likely that if they do something, it's going to be more easily believed because people are going to say, well, we all knew it was going to happen. You know, before Trump had his ear pierced by the AR-15, there were so many people saying, I mean, from Stu Peters to Alex Jones to General Flynn and all these other individuals, they're all saying the same thing. Trump's going to get it. Trump's going to get it. Then it happens like, oh, we knew this was going to happen. So they build up a chorus. Check this out. Smile 2 director admits taking inspiration from Jack Nicholson's The Shining. So if you're familiar with this, Kubrick's stare, you would have noticed it in Smile 2. The Kubrick stare, the person's chin is down, they're looking up at the person, looking deranged. Now, what's interesting here is that Smile 2, it's a horror movie. I haven't seen Smile 1. I haven't seen Smile 2. But when I went out to go see Joker 2 and Beetlejuice 2, I saw Smile 2. And what's the common denominator? The creepy Joker smile and the 2. So there's a couple of connections we were looking at here. But what I picked up on here, of course, is Smile 2, Kubrick's stare, and it turns out that Jack Nicholson, where Kubrick's stare really it has its origin, that Jack Nicholson's son directed this movie, Smile 2. Just strange, but not so strange, because we're looking at a concerted messaging, like what was being told here. What's the connection between these? Well, if you remember, the Joker has been consistently associated with the shooters. Thomas Matthew Crook was associated with the Riddler. Ryan Routh, Joker-esque. The green hair Joker has correlates to the green hair of Beetlejuice, who's this Joker-esque character. We're talking about archetypes, the chaos agent, the shooters. And this has been a reoccurring theme. All right, well, anyway, thanks everyone for joining. I have to run some errands. I've been repurposing the office so we can get into the business of sending out tabloids. Next day delivery. So I want to say thanks to everyone who ordered the copies and appreciate the patience of those who ordered in the past. If you ordered a copy back in September and it was held back because of shipping rates that weren't included in the original price, you're on the list and those are being sent out first. But they're all going out tomorrow. Isabel Ann says there's some astrological alignments on Sunday. They wait for certain energy to make it more believable. Yes. We sometimes delve into this, that the script that we're seeing playing out here on Earth has some celestial origins to it. Specifically when it's timed, it becomes very notable, along with certain celestial alignments, but that's intrinsic to it. It's the nature of astrotheological religion, the idea of the cycles of nature and time being translated through personification into mythology. And the media today provides us with mythology, contemporary myths. And these stories do, in fact, have a basis in the zodiac, the bigger story of the cycles of time. Because ultimately, and this is where you get in, we talk about this place being a prison or a trap. The symbol of Saturn implies this. Well, what does Saturn and the cube imply? It's the god of death and the cycle of death and rebirth, but also matter and time and the control over the temporal existence through time-space. Like the Saturnian symbol we see is so prevalent, I believe, because ultimately it speaks to their power over time and space exerted through worldview control, where they tell you what the world is physically. There's your space control. And then time. By artificially writing our history, they do control time. If you haven't seen Megalopolis, I recommend it because you see this group called the Design Authority. And they look just like the strangers from Dark City who control time. And they reset everything. And at night, people are in these completely different lives because they're being manipulated. Well, this is symbolic of reincarnation. When they go to bed at night and wake up the next day, it's all new. But the Design Authority in Megalopolis freeze time, orchestrate some event in New York with explosions. Well, that perfectly demonstrates how the metascriptors, how the PSYOP entertainment complex, the design authority of our worldview, does exert control over time. We live when they say. It's 2025 because they say so. But their own calendars may be different. There are some calendars that you could look, for example, the year of light, they add 4,000 years. Joe Saunders says, my crazy theory is that under the Super Bowl stadium, they have a thing where the fans' emotions fill up Dragon Balls or something, but it's a joke as of now. You know, I just coincidentally happened to be reading a bit today about talismanic magic and the theory behind the transmission of one's soul energy into matter, into objects designed to receive them. And the theory here, and a lot of these rituals I've seen in different traditions involve breathing, like the spoken word, but also breathing onto the objects. Idol magic has this as a common facet, sort of like God breathing into the mud. But the idea is that the life force, your sentience itself, is in fact something that is a currency that can be transmitted and it can be harvested. And it can be imbued into a physical object, and that it attains in itself some sort of, maybe not sentience, but operational consciousness, not unlike AI. Very interesting kind of an area when you get into idol magic and the theory behind it, and talismanic magic, and the fundamental belief in nearly every magical tradition that indeed the energy of the spirits of the people participating in rituals is in fact stored. They even use the term charging talismans. So you're probably right about this. I'm almost certain of it, because I think the Super Bowl is primarily a religious rite. It is a religious ceremony. Its primary purpose is that. Entertainment is secondary. So you're probably right. I don't know what's beneath the Super Bowl stadium, but what were they doing Super Bowl 47 when they turned off the lights for 33 minutes? Some kind of pizza party beneath the bleachers? Anyway, thanks for joining. This is Fepe Akbar, Allergic to Bullshit, featuring Lean Dion.
With your deception, keep it real, that's a profession. Like the whole world is pretending, found the truth around the penguin. Get a gang on with a blessing, all the other gang is stressing. IPS on a nesting, only real ones gonna get this. Like fake ones only accept this, they can miss the message. Timbuktu got bodies, yeah, find them in our wreckage. Auto host a message, squad are represented. Killing you with knowledge, yeah, the uppers getting dirty. Oh, you're so affected, cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah, the whole thing is a setup. We got it and we get it, offering refreshment. Level up your conscience, yeah, it's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable, facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable, give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you, you just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable, unless you're with the gang or no. Messing with the penguin, we're messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin, 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 fucking with the penguins, yeah, with the penguins. I'm coming with a vengeance, trying to make you come to your senses. Forget the general consensus, just pay attention. You're going to hesitate for good intentions. I'm clenching my back wrenching, representing always the most superior, independent media. We got that real shit, fucking encyclopedia. We're bringing an end to this mass hysteria. They wanna know why it's so serious, cause you must be delirious. If you're still believing stuff, get a grip and show some evidence for your bold claims. We don't play no games, we stay relentless, exposing those events. Quick, the IPS are making an entrance. Busting doors down, cause now's the time for interventions. Did I mention we're affecting so many men across the spectrum? We stand out from the crowd, we don't blend in. Steady gaining tremendous momentum. There's nothing close to resembling. Check the emblem, it's a penguin, not a gremlin. Just letting you know you're on an infinite plane, it's never bending. We strike like 10 pin, killing all fears and breaking the tension. Gotta know the hopes army, digging deep in the trenches. Come and join in, be adventurous. Quit being so sensitive, forget the censorship. We ain't telling fibs. Messing with the penguin, we're messing with the penguin.